On October 14, 1944, a black car pulled up to a quiet house in the German countryside. Inside the house, a man was recovering from serious injuries. He had been wounded 3 months earlier when his car was attacked by enemy aircraft. His skull had been fractured. His left eye was damaged. He was still weak, still healing, still hoping to return to duty. Two generals stepped out of the car. They were not there to wish him well. They were there to deliver a message from Adolf Hitler. The message was simple. You have been accused of treason. You have two choices. Take this poison and die quietly, and your family will be safe. Your reputation will be protected. You will receive a state funeral with full military honors. Or refuse and face trial before a Nazi court, where you will certainly be found guilty, executed, and your family will suffer the consequences. The man listened calmly. He asked for a few minutes to say goodbye to his wife and son. Then he walked to the car, climbed inside, and was driven to a quiet spot nearby. 15 minutes later, he was dead. His name was Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, the most famous German general of World War II, the man even his enemies respected, and he had just been murdered by his own government. This is the story of Erwin Rommel, not just his death, but his life. How a small-town German boy became the most celebrated military commander of his generation. How he conquered North Africa and earned the admiration of the world. How he fell from Hitler's favor and became entangled in a plot to kill the dictator. And how he ended his life on a country road with a cyanide capsule in his mouth and Nazi guards watching to make sure he swallowed it. It is a story of genius and blindness, of loyalty and betrayal, of a man who served evil but may have tried too late to stop it. Let us begin at the beginning. Erwin Johannes Eugen Rommel was born on November 15, 1891, in Heidenheim, a small town in southern Germany. His father was a schoolteacher and headmaster. His mother came from a family of local officials. It was a respectable, middle-class household, strict but not harsh, focused on education and discipline. Young Erwin was not an exceptional student. He was quiet, somewhat shy, and showed no particular talent for academics. His father wanted him to become an engineer. But Erwin was drawn to something else. He wanted to be a soldier. In 1910, at the age of 18, Rommel joined the German army as an officer cadet. It was not a prestigious choice for a young man of his background. The German officer corps was dominated by aristocrats, men with noble names and family connections. Rommel had neither. He would have to earn everything through merit alone. He proved to be exceptionally good at earning things. When World War I began in 1914, Rommel was a young lieutenant in the infantry. Within weeks, he had distinguished himself in combat. He was brave to the point of recklessness, always leading from the front, always looking for ways to outmaneuver the enemy. He was wounded multiple times, but always returned to duty as quickly as possible. His most famous exploit came in 1917 during the Battle of Caporetto in Italy. Rommel led a small force of mountain troops in a daring assault that captured thousands of Italian soldiers and a seemingly impossible amount of territory. He moved fast, struck hard, and kept the enemy off balance. He took risks that should have gotten him killed, but somehow always worked. For this action, Rommel was awarded the Pour le Mérite, Germany's highest military decoration. It was an extraordinary honor for someone of his junior rank and common background. The award made him famous within military circles. Here was an officer who got results, who did not wait for orders, who made things happen through sheer aggression and willpower. After the war, Rommel stayed in the small army that Germany was permitted to keep under the Versailles Treaty. He married Lucy Mollin in 1916, and they had one son, Manfred, born in 1928. Rommel was a devoted husband and father, writing long letters to his wife whenever they were apart, always finding time for his son despite the demands of his career. During the 1920s and 1930s, Rommel served as an instructor at various military schools. He wrote a book about infantry tactics based on his experiences in World War I. The book, called Infantry Attacks, became a bestseller and was read by military officers around the world. It established Rommel as one of the leading tactical thinkers of his generation. When Hitler came to power in 1933, Rommel was not a Nazi. He was not particularly political at all. He was a professional soldier, focused on his craft, not interested in ideology. But he was impressed by Hitler's apparent success in rebuilding Germany's military strength and restoring national pride. Like many Germans, he supported the regime without examining it too closely. Hitler, in turn, became interested in Rommel. The dictator read Infantry Attacks and was impressed. He saw in Rommel exactly the kind of aggressive, unconventional officer he wanted leading his armies. In 1938, Hitler appointed Rommel to command his personal security battalion. It was a position of great trust and visibility. When World War II began in September 1939, Rommel commanded Hitler's headquarters guard during the invasion of Poland. He did not see much combat, but he was close to the center of power, watching and learning. His opportunity came in February 1940, when he was given command of the 7th Panzer Division. This was what Rommel had been waiting for. Tanks, speed, offensive warfare. Everything he had learned in World War I applied to a new kind of combat. The invasion of France in May 1940 made Rommel famous. His division advanced so fast, so far, so unexpectedly, that it earned the nickname Ghost Division. Even German high command sometimes lost track of where Rommel was. He was always at the front, always pushing forward, always taking risks that paid off. In 6 weeks, France was defeated, and Rommel was a national hero. But his greatest fame was still to come. In February 1941, Hitler sent Rommel to North Africa. The situation in Africa was dire. Italy, Germany's ally, had invaded Egypt from its colony in Libya. The invasion had been a disaster. British forces had counterattacked, destroying the Italian army and threatening to push all the way to Tripoli. Hitler decided to send German troops to rescue his ally. The force was called the Afrika Korps. Its commander was Erwin Rommel. Rommel arrived in Africa in February 1941 with orders to defend. He had only a small force, 2 divisions at first. He was told to wait for reinforcements before taking any offensive action. He ignored these orders completely. Within weeks of arriving, Rommel attacked. He drove the British back across hundreds of miles of desert. He captured territory that was supposed to be impossible to take with his limited forces. He besieged the port of Tobruk. He threatened Egypt itself. He turned a defensive mission into an offensive triumph. The British were stunned. They had expected to finish off the Italians and secure North Africa. Instead, they found themselves facing a German general who seemed to be everywhere at once, who attacked when he should have defended, who appeared out of the desert when least expected. This was when Rommel earned his nickname. The British called him the Desert Fox. It was meant as a compliment, acknowledging his cunning and unpredictability. The name stuck. Even today, when people think of Rommel, they think of the Desert Fox. For 2 years, Rommel fought in North Africa. The campaign seesawed back and forth across the desert. Rommel would advance, then be pushed back by supply shortages and British counterattacks. Then he would advance again, somehow finding a way to win with inferior numbers and inadequate supplies. His victories were remarkable. In June 1942, he captured Tobruk, taking over 30,000 British prisoners. For this achievement, Hitler promoted him to Field Marshal, the highest rank in the German army. Rommel was 50 years old, at the peak of his fame and power. But the tide was turning. The British, under a new commander named Bernard Montgomery, were building up their forces for a decisive blow. In October 1942, at a place called El Alamein, Montgomery attacked with overwhelming force. Rommel fought hard but could not stop the advance. He was forced to retreat, giving up all the territory he had won. Then came worse news. American and British forces landed in Morocco and Algeria, opening a second front in Africa. Rommel was caught between two armies, with dwindling supplies and no hope of reinforcement. By May 1943, the Africa Corps surrendered. Rommel himself had already been evacuated, recalled to Germany before the final collapse. The Desert Fox had been defeated, but his reputation remained intact. He had fought brilliantly against superior forces. He had treated prisoners well. He had refused to carry out criminal orders. Even in defeat, he was respected. This respect extended to his enemies. Winston Churchill praised Rommel in the British Parliament, calling him a great general. American commanders studied his tactics. He was seen as a good German, a professional soldier untainted by Nazi atrocities. This reputation was not entirely deserved. Rommel served the Nazi regime. He benefited from Hitler's favor. He commanded troops in a war of aggression. He was not innocent. But compared to many German commanders, especially those on the Eastern Front, he was relatively clean. He did not participate in mass murders. He did not commit war crimes. He fought hard, but fought honorably. After Africa, Rommel was given various assignments. He inspected defenses in Denmark and France. He was eventually put in charge of defending the Atlantic coast against the expected Allied invasion. This was a crucial job. Everyone knew the British and Americans would eventually try to land in France. The question was where and when. Rommel threw himself into the work with his usual energy. He inspected fortifications personally, walking beaches, checking bunkers, demanding improvements. He planted millions of obstacles and mines along the French coast. He argued for keeping tank divisions close to the beaches, ready to counterattack immediately when the invasion came. But Rommel was also growing disillusioned. By 1944, he could see that Germany was losing the war. The Eastern Front was collapsing. Allied bombers were destroying German cities. The resources needed to win simply did not exist. Rommel began to believe that the war should be ended through negotiation before Germany was completely destroyed. This belief brought him into contact with a dangerous group of people. A conspiracy was forming within the German military and aristocracy. These conspirators planned to assassinate Hitler and negotiate peace with the Allies. They approached Rommel, hoping that his prestige would help legitimize a new government. How deeply was Rommel involved? This question has been debated for decades. He certainly knew about the conspiracy. He met with some of the plotters. He agreed that Hitler was leading Germany to destruction. But did he approve of assassination? Did he actively participate in the planning? The evidence is unclear. Some conspirators later said Rommel supported the plot. Others said he preferred to arrest Hitler rather than kill him. Rommel himself never had a chance to tell his side of the story. What is certain is that Rommel was becoming a problem for the regime. He had expressed doubts about the war to Hitler personally. He had argued with the dictator about strategy. He was no longer the loyal subordinate he had once been. Then came the invasion. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy. D-Day, the largest amphibious assault in history. Rommel was not there when it happened. He had gone home to Germany for his wife's birthday, believing that bad weather made an invasion unlikely. By the time he returned, the Allies had established a foothold that could not be dislodged. Rommel fought hard to contain the invasion, but it was hopeless. Allied air power made movement during daylight suicidal. Allied supplies poured across the beaches while German reinforcements were bombed on the roads. The front crumbled slowly but steadily. On July 17, 1944, Rommel's staff car was attacked by British aircraft. The car crashed, and Rommel was thrown onto the road. He suffered severe head injuries, including a fractured skull and damage to his left eye. He was unconscious for a week. When he woke up, his war was over. 3 days after Rommel was wounded, on July 20, 1944, a bomb exploded in Hitler's headquarters. The assassination attempt had finally happened. A colonel named Klaus von Stauffenberg had placed a briefcase bomb under a table during a meeting with Hitler. The bomb exploded, but Hitler survived with only minor injuries. The revenge was terrible. Thousands of people were arrested. Hundreds were executed, many by hanging with piano wire while cameras filmed their slow deaths. The Gestapo investigated everyone with any connection to the conspiracy, no matter how remote. Rommel's name came up during the investigations. Some of the conspirators, under torture, mentioned that they had hoped Rommel would support a new government. Others said he had known about the plot. The evidence was thin, but in Nazi Germany, thin evidence was enough. Hitler was furious but also conflicted. Rommel was a national hero. Putting him on trial would be embarrassing. It would raise questions about the loyalty of the military. It would damage morale. A quiet solution was needed. On October 14, 1944, two generals arrived at Rommel's home in Herrlingen. Their names were Wilhelm Burgdorf and Ernst Meisel. They had come from Hitler's headquarters with a message. Rommel's son Manfred, who was 15 years old, saw the generals arrive. He noticed that his father seemed tense during their private conversation. After about an hour, Rommel came to find his wife and son. He told them the truth. He had been accused of involvement in the July 20th plot. He had been given a choice. He could take poison and die immediately. In return, his family would not be persecuted, and he would receive a state funeral with full honors. The official story would be that he died of his wounds. Or he could refuse, face trial before a Nazi court, be found guilty, be executed, and his family would suffer. For Rommel, there was no real choice. He would not let his family be destroyed to save himself. He would not give the Nazis the satisfaction of a show trial. He would die quietly, protecting those he loved. He put on his Afrika Korps jacket, the uniform he had worn during his greatest triumphs. He said goodbye to his wife, Lucy. He embraced his son, Manfred. Then he walked out to the waiting car. The generals drove him to a quiet spot about half a mile from the house. They stopped the car. Burgdorf handed Rommel a cyanide capsule. Rommel bit down on it. Within seconds, he was dead. The generals drove back to the house and informed Lucy that her husband had suffered a heart attack on the way to the hospital. The lie had begun. Rommel was given a state funeral on October 18, 1944. Hitler sent a massive wreath. Senior Nazis attended. The official announcement praised Rommel as a hero who had died of wounds suffered in the service of Germany. No mention was made of poison or treason. Only after the war did the truth emerge. Manfred Rommel eventually told the full story. Other witnesses confirmed what had happened. The myth of Rommel dying from his wounds was exposed as a Nazi lie. What happened to Rommel's family after his death? Lucy Rommel survived the war. She lived quietly in Germany, protecting her husband's memory, never remarrying. She died in 1971, still devoted to the man she had married 55 years earlier. Manfred Rommel had a remarkable career. He served briefly in the German military at the end of the war, though he was too young to see serious combat. After the war, he studied law and entered politics. He became a member of the Christian Democratic Union, the center-right party that dominated West Germany. In 1974, Manfred Rommel was elected mayor of Stuttgart, one of Germany's largest cities. He served in that position for 22 years, becoming one of the most respected politicians in Germany. He was known for his moderate views, his commitment to reconciliation, and his efforts to heal the wounds of the war. Manfred Rommel died in 2013 at the age of 84. He had transformed the Rommel name from a symbol of military conquest into a symbol of democratic governance. His father had served a dictatorship. The son had served a democracy. What is Erwin Rommel's legacy? It is complicated. He was a brilliant military commander, perhaps one of the best of the 20th century. His tactics are still studied at military academies around the world. His ability to inspire troops, to improvise under pressure, to achieve results with limited resources was extraordinary. But he served an evil regime. He fought for Hitler. He helped Germany wage a war of aggression that killed tens of millions of people. He was not a Nazi ideologue, but he was a Nazi soldier. His victories extended the war and increased its death toll. The question of his involvement in the July 20th plot adds another layer of complexity. If Rommel truly supported the assassination of Hitler, then he died trying to end the Nazi regime. That would make him, in some sense, a hero. But the evidence is ambiguous. We do not know exactly what he believed or what he was willing to do. Some historians see Rommel as a tragic figure, a good man trapped in a bad system, who eventually tried to do the right thing and paid with his life. Others see him as a willing servant of evil who only turned against Hitler when defeat was obvious. The truth is probably somewhere in between. What is certain is that Rommel was human. He was not a monster, like some Nazi leaders. He was not a saint, like those who actively resisted from the beginning. He was a man who made choices, some admirable and some not, and who ultimately could not escape the consequences of serving a criminal regime. He died on a country road in Germany, forced to swallow poison by the government he had served faithfully for years. He was 52 years old. He left behind a wife, a son, and a reputation that people are still arguing about today. That is the story of Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, the Field Marshal, the man Hitler forced to kill himself. He was buried near his home in Herrlingen. His grave still exists, a simple stone marking the resting place of one of history's most complicated soldiers. People still visit. They still wonder what kind of man he really was. They still debate whether he deserves respect or condemnation. Perhaps he deserves both. Perhaps that is the only honest answer. He was brilliant and flawed, courageous and compromised, loyal and ultimately betrayed. He was, in the end, a man who served evil but may have died trying to end it. That is Erwin Rommel's story. Make of it what you will.